Hi, I'm Beck from Beck Baker Instructional Design. Welcome to this video tutorial. In this video, it's going to be all about buttons and target sizes, and technically why accessibility doesn't always mean easy to use. Most of this video is going to cover the theory side, so we're going to look at Fitts Law, WCAG guidelines, CSS pixels and digital pixel ratio, and how all those things will make a difference depending on what device and screen you are using. I'll then do a short storyline demo showing you how you can create padding around your buttons and targets, and also really touch briefly on sliders and dials. I have also written an article about button sizes and target sizes, which I'll put in the description for you to go to. And there are also videos in a lot more detail on sliders and dials, so please do check them out. Okay, hope you enjoy the video. Let's get learning. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of accessibility size and button sizes, I just wanted to talk about why size and distance matter at all when we're designing our e-learning. So Paul Fitts was a psychologist in the 1950s, and he developed this model that predicted the time required for a human to move to a target. And the only thing that you really need to take from this is our time, and we have distance divided by width. And what it's saying is that the closer we are to a target, the faster it will be for us to hit that target. So in this case, it's where the pointer is. It's going to be pretty instant, isn't it? When we are further away, but our target is big, it's going to get a little bit slower, but it's not going to be our slowest. And then when our target is teeny tiny and we're far away from it, that's going to be our slowest. So it's important to realise that it's not just about size, it's also about distance as well. So let's see that in practice. So I've just got a start and end button, and then I'm going to move it further away and see how long it takes me basically. So I'm going to press the start button and the end button, and this shows the time elapsed. I'll try and be quicker. Oh, 0.3. Oh, that was my quickest. So this is milliseconds, so 26 milliseconds for me to be able to go from one to the other. And they're nice, massive targets. They're nice and big and fairly close. So if I move it further away, but the same size target, it's going to take me a bit longer. So I can still get it fairly quick, but we're sort of 10 to 20 milliseconds longer. If I move it further away, then that's starting to get to half a second. Yeah, pretty much. And also the button got smaller, I should have said. So the target is smaller for us to hit, and we've got a further distance. And now I'm going to put it at that 24 by 24 pixels and see how long it takes me now. Okay, so it may look like I'm like deliberately going slower, but it's really hard to get to hit the actual target. So I think my first go was the quickest. So that wasn't too bad, but we can see that it's taken a lot longer, and the hardest thing is this button size. So, you know, when I move close to it, you can see when I'm over it, it turns into the hand, and that's the only selectable area compared to my nice big button that had lots and lots. This is just demonstrating those differences. Now, this doesn't just count for how quick we are going to be able to click something related to the size. It might be where we position it on our screen as well. So, for example, you know, if you know that people are going to be using their phones, we tend to use our thumbs when we are pressing buttons. So we want to design it so they're lower down. And on the right, if you're right-handed, most people, the majority of people are right-handed, so you might want the really important stuff, you definitely want them to click on in that bottom right-hand corner. Whereas to close down their web page or their app, you don't want them to do that very often, so that might be smaller and at the top. So it's just going to be something they're not going to accidentally click on as well. So distance can help the opposite way, so we may want them to have to take their time to click on something. So what is the actual criterion? So the WCAG say that the target size minimum, that's what they call it, level AA is 24 by 24 CSS pixels, and we'll get into what CSS pixels are soon, but that is this little tiny button here. And then their enhanced version, which is AAA, is double that, so 48 by 48 pixels. So Storyline, so you know, will give you a green tick as long as you have got the target size minimum. And these links, if you just go to the w3.org and search for target size minimum, then that will send you to these links. I can put them in the comments as well for you, and that allows you to just see some of the rules with it. So there are caveats. You can, like, say for example, this was my teeny tiny button, but also I had this title as being a select button as well. You can get away with that, and there's various other rules, so you can check those out. I'll put it in the comments for you. Okay, so what is a CSS pixel? So this can get confusing for people, and it definitely has for me in the past. So a CSS pixel is not a physical pixel. By definition, 96 CSS pixels will equal 1 inch. And this is what you're seeing here. I do understand this isn't 1 inch, and depending on what you're viewing, but if you sort of trust me that if this was the full size, because I have the same screen resolution as the course has been designed, then this would be 1 inch. And there's all our little tiny pixels within there. Hopefully you can see that, but that's what's happening. So in 1 inch we're getting 96 pixels. Now, not every device is like that, and on high resolution devices this is going to change, and I will show you that next. So basically, depending on the device, you have what's called a digital pixel ratio, and this is how many pixels, like physical real pixels, are going to fit into that CSS pixel. So if we have a digital pixel ratio, a DPR value of 1, our standard screen like this one is that I'm working on, then 1 CSS pixel equals 1 physical pixel, as we can see here. So this is the same as this. But for our laptops and some iPads and tablets, then it would be 2 times. So we're getting 2 that way and 2 that way, so 4 physical pixels in total. And then we have 3 by 3, so 9 altogether for our Super Retina high quality mobile phones. So what this means is we're fitting a lot more physical pixels into that single CSS pixel. So this will give us better quality, so that's why we like it. But also it can then, when you do a little bit of maths, which I'll show you in a bit, it does change how we're actually seeing things on the screen. So let's go on to the next bit, which is screen size and zooming. So for our screen size and zooming, Storyline automatically will respond to the size of your screen, so they call it responsive. And it did used to only be for like your tablets and monitors, but now it's also for mobiles as well. It used to be that only Rise would be your Google Pixel, sorry, your mobile phone. Just reading what's there. So the screen size is this top part here. And as you can see, you might be thinking, oh, well, I'm sure my phone is a better resolution of that, but it's taken into account this DPR. So this is how many of our CSS pixels it's fitting in. So it would be double the amount of real pixels that's fitting in here. Hope that makes sense. Yeah, it's obviously smaller. And then we have this thing called viewport size. And the easiest way for me to show you is the link that's at the bottom. I'll just bring this up, which is what is my viewport. And I'm sure there are plenty of others, but this one's quite straightforward and nice and simple. And basically, your viewport size is the actual size that your website is going to be displaying in, or your course, or whatever it happens to be. So as we can see, the width isn't being affected, but our height is, because we have this up here, and also, which is just slightly off the video, I have my taskbar at the bottom as well. And then it'll give you the real screen size and your DPR. And this is really useful. I plugged these into my iPad. I went to the link for my iPad and for my phone, and this is what it gave me. So it's just nice to be able to see that. And also, unfortunately, Storyline will also take up some space as well for your headers and for your buttons and everything. On a mobile phone, these will all look slightly different, but they will still be taking up real estate. You can go and change that so it does just fill up the screen, but then you're not able to get any of your accessible controls or anything actually useful. So that would be great if you were using it to do a kind of like a PowerPoint or something, so you're just wanting to fill your whole screen. But yes, you're always going to have a bit of real estate taken up when you're doing this. So one of the things you can do with the responsive devices is that you do have your HTML5 gestures for tablets and smartphones. So you can swipe left or right. That does depend on whether you've got your slide set up to do that, because I tend to switch it off because I have buttons to press, but you could have that switched on yourself. And then the pinching actions, tapping and dragging. So you've got different options there. But my thing is that we want this to be accessible for most people. Now, some people are going to have to really zoom in to see pretty much anything on their device. But the majority of people don't want to be continuously zooming in and zooming out and zooming in and zooming out just to be able to click on a button or see a bit of information better. So if we can display it big enough to start off with, then that should suit more people. Okay, so we've gone over screen size, we've gone over DPR and CSS pixels. So let's put that into a calculation. So to calculate our CSS pixels, we need the width. And in my case, I'm doing it in millimeters. The 96 is that number we had before, so 96 dots per inch. Our DPR value, our scale, so this is how much our screen is reducing or increasing if you were putting it on a big screen. And the 25.4 is just to convert it from inches to millimeters. So say that we wanted, the average finger, they say, is 10 to 12 mils, the pad. Thumbs are a lot bigger, more closer to 20 mil. And say we have a digital pixel ratio of 1 and a scale of 1. So for a 10 mil button, we need our CSS logical pixel, that's sometimes what they're called, is 37.8. So if we think of our AAA criterion, that was 48 pixels, so that would be great for that. So 10 mil. 10 mil would be achievable, but let's just change it to the iPad. So that had a digital pixel ratio of 2, and it's approximately 0.6 scaling, so 60% of the screen size. And now our button needs to be 125.98. Obviously we can't do those bits, but we're looking at 126 pixels for our button size now. And just so you can judge that, this button here is 100 CSS pixels, so we're going a little bit bigger around that. And you might not want to have your buttons huge, and that's what we're going to cover in the next part of this. But I just wanted to demonstrate what that could look like for you of the different button sizes compared to a hand. So this is my little hand, and if you measured across from here to here, then it's 10 mil. So I'm trying, approximately 10 mil. I'm just trying to demonstrate what buttons would look like. So this is just our screen. So up here, we can test out different sizes, which is great, and how it responds to those sizes. And I've had to, these buttons are to change the size of my hand, because obviously it would change everything to be smaller, and I need to make this the right size. So we've got our screen. And if we go over our little buttons, we can see that, we might be able to click on here, but it is smaller already. And then we've got better size and better, and loads of room to click on this one. So this was, if we had our full screen, that's what the sort of 96 pixels would look like our 1 inch effectively. So if I just go, I'm just going to move this over here. This doesn't work so great when I'm just demoing. But if I do my zoom to fit and I'll just go full zoom, this is that same size hand. And we can see on the big screen, great, we can almost get most of that button, which isn't too bad. And that's kind of where they're saying, okay, we can cope with this. And definitely with a mouse pointer, we've got more chance. And then our 48 pixels, great, you know, our whole finger's fitting in there, and our bigger, and, you know, tons of room for this particular one. But if we, I'm just going to go out of there and we select our iPad. Sorry, I needed to select it here first and then select the iPad one. So the same size. Now that button is a lot smaller compared to our finger size. This one's not too bad, but it is definitely smaller than our finger. And now, you know, we could get this one quite comfortably and this one a lot better. And if we go to our phone and select the phone one, so now look how teeny tiny it is. So really tiny, and it may, I know it might be hard seeing this different hand, but I have measured them to be exactly the same size. So now this target is so tiny, because it is definitely not 6.355 anymore. And then as we go up, this one's a lot smaller as well. This one is actually also smaller than our target, and it's only when we get to the 144 that actually our finger is the smaller one than the button. Okay, so hopefully that just gave you a little bit of an overview about different reasons why our button sizes are changing, and just a little bit about the rules. And what we're going to do next is just a really quick demo of how you can make those buttons more accessible without just increasing the size of your button to take up half your screen. So we've got this button here that is exactly the same as the two in the corner, and this is, I'll just click on it to show you, is 100 by 100 pixels. Now, some people would still say that this button is too big. I personally don't think so. You know, you're not going to want information down in this section anyway. One of the main reasons is closed captions. So if you have your subtitles, they will, depending on the device that you're using, most of the time they will fill up this space here. So I kind of make it a rule, anything below there, I am not putting anything. You know, I don't need to fill up my screen with a million ton of text or pictures or whatever. I'm trying to utilize every space. White space is a good thing, and your learners will thank you for it. So I found 90 to 100 tend to be what button sizes I do, but we can also make them even bigger, and I'll show you how. So when we click on a button, we can go to states and click edit states, and all I'm going to do is insert a rectangle over the top of this. So it's nice and straightforward, and I'm just going to format that so it's 160 by 160, oops, like that. And I'm just going to make the shape transparent. So just click on your shape fill, drag it all the way to there, or you can type the number in here. And as you can see, that's now our little box. And I'm going to leave the outline just so that you can see what's happening with that. So I'm just going to say show layer when user clicks. Oh yeah, this button, I should have renamed it, and that's just so we can change it from a pointer to a hand. So when I view this, now I know it's got a border around it that is purely for demonstration purposes, but we can see now that when I move into that box, so all around it, it turns into my little hand, and you can see the hover state coming on as well. Whereas the buttons down at the bottom is only when I am over the actual button that's changing. Now this is really good for our buttons in the corner. Now other buttons are a little bit different, but our buttons in the corner, well, we've already got a bit of space. The majority of people are not going to have their button right up to the edges. So I always have mine that it's 20 by 20 distance. So if we take our square that we added, and I'm going to add it to this one, so insert shape, and I'm just going to drag it first and I'll sort it out later. So I'm just going to make the fill transparent, and I'm going to make it 160 by 160, and I'm just going to, just going to drag that so that it's in the corner. Okay, approximately. So yeah, this is now, well, it's 2020 and then 30 there. It doesn't, 40 there, it doesn't matter. And I'll just get rid of the outline as well. So now you'll see it. So our button is in the corner. It's a reasonable size for the majority of people to click on it anyway, and it's not looking too ugly being big. And then when I am really close by, it is then going to activate. Now obviously you wouldn't want loads of padding if you've got multiple buttons on top of each other or next to each other, but for something like as simple as your next and back buttons, these are a lot more accessible, and even more accessible than if you had the buttons that are displayed. They're really tiny, their area. And one way you can actually look is with the inspection tool here. So this opens development tools. This is the same as pressing F12 on your PC, and I think Command Option I for a Mac. Don't quote me on that. I think that's what it is. Oops. And I just wanted to move this out of the way a little bit over here. So if I click on this tool here and I go over our button, we can see that with this particular laptop size that it is chosen, then my button is 103. If I just increase, get rid of that, it'll probably still be the same sort of size because it's more than the width of it. But yes, we've got a nice decent sized button. If I go over to the other side, sorry, just got to move this out of the way, then this one, this one is 64 by 64. So straight away, even with this big screen, we are reducing that size. Now if we just go to our iPad again, this probably isn't too much different, 83, and then remember this was 100, just on the sort of tablet version it's gone down to 52. And let's go to our small mobile phone. I'll just move this out of the way. So our nice big button that we've created is now 35. It's still smaller than our AAA that we had, but at least it is passing the 24 by 24 CSS pixels. But this one isn't anymore, so even though it was 100, it's not quite ticking the boxes. So now we can't always cater for every single device and every single type of phone, but just drawing a simple box around something like that makes it even more accessible for you. One other way, if you don't want to create your own buttons, you can insert one of the buttons that you have here, and I tend to just choose the top one. It actually gives me more freedom, so I'm just going to fill it dark green, and we're going to make it larger. So we're going to do our 140. Don't worry about the width, but we're just trying to show the height. I'm just going to get rid of the border. Okay, so this is our button. I'm just going to call it button, so you can see something on it. And it's 140, which is a big button, isn't it? Visually, it might be taking up a lot of our room, and it might actually be good to give ourselves some space. But a really easy way to sort it is our button border. So if we click on button border and colour it in the same colour as your background and go to weight, and I'm just going to go to more lines because it'll make more sense. Move that over there. Then as we increase the width, you'll see that it's staying the same height as before, but our button is getting smaller. So if I change it to 40, then our button now is that 100, but we've got that white space around it. So again, it's just another way of being able to still have a smaller looking button on your screen, or whatever it happens to be that you're doing, but now we've got a bigger area that we can choose. So I quite like being able to do these. The buttons are quite good, because then when you go to the states of the button, you've got all your different hover states and down states, and you don't have to think too much about those if that's what you prefer. I like drawing my own, that is just me, but that's just a little bit about button size. So the next thing we're going to go on to is really quickly sliders and dials. So I just want to say that I have 2 videos on sliders and dials, so if you want to know more about those and kind of how to do what I'm just going to show you, then it's really worth going and having a look at those, because I go into quite a lot of depth. So all I wanted to show here was if I have a slider, and this is fairly stereotypical slider when I go drag it, that's what I get. This button is teeny tiny, and that's the bit we're grabbing. And again, not too bad for using on our big screens, but using on a small screen, it's really tiny and it can be quite hard to use. So we can change that by, if I just increase the size of this, might look a little bit ugly at the moment, but what we're going to do is we're going to, format, we're going to go to thumb fill, and you can add a picture instead. So go in our picture, and I've got a picture of a clock. And now if I just get rid of the border, so I don't want a border around it. And now instead of it being an ugly big blob that someone has to grab, it's actually something that, you know, hopefully you've chosen a picture that is related to whatever you are doing. And then it's a nice big area for someone to click on. If I just go onto our inspect again, and just click on here. So this is, on this particular one, 97 pixels. So it's not too bad, and if we're going to go to our teeny tiny, it's not the worst in the world, hopefully. So 33, so we're passing the AA standard, even on a really small screen with that. But it actually looks quite nice because it's something related. So obviously I've just picked a random picture, but it is related to the topic and makes it just look a little bit nicer. But like I said, my video goes into more detail on how you can change the background and how you can lay out different measurements and stuff, so it's really worth looking at. And then we've got our dials. So with dials, unfortunately, the only thing that is selectable is the pin here. Sorry, the what do they call it? The pointer. So the pointer is the only bit that we can choose. So you do have different dials where it's a big circle, but if you're wanting to have something like this, that they would then move at a certain angle, this is the only part that's selectable. You can't even select the pin, and really all you can do is just sort of increase the size of it, but then it can get a little bit ridiculous. So what we can do instead of that is we can convert anything into a dial. And like I said, we haven't got time to show you here, but if I just go to my timeline and switch that one off, I have done that with a hand here. So now when I go to it, and obviously this image has to be relevant to whatever you're doing, but now I've got all of this area. I don't have to be sort of selecting just that one point. I can select anywhere to be able to rotate it. So again, I go into detail of how you can do this in the video and different options, and you can have quite a bit of fun. So I know that was quite a quick video on the actual how to create your button sizes and things to change with sliders and dials, but I really wanted to talk about the theory first and why we're actually doing this in the first place, because accessibility isn't just about ticking boxes, it's actually making it usable for our learners. And
the more people that we can make this work for, then the better. So I hope it was useful. If there's anything else you would like any videos to be on, please put it in the comments, and I'll see you on the next one.